I cried as client, big breakthrough, feeling my feelings. I wrote this in my journal in term 3, as I had shared a recent bereavement during skills practice and was comfortable with letting out the built up emotions. Early into term 1, I wrote about how I feel the course is encouraging me to be vulnerable and helping me to grow as a person. However, it has been a recurring theme for me that I never feel like I'm fully comfortable with being vulnerable with my course mates and generally. I think this stems partly from ingrained societal expectations around what it means to be a man. Crying was a huge turning point for me in term 3. It marked my progress as I was able to connect with my emotions. I believe that the therapeutic relationship played a significant role in making me feel heard, validated, and safe, especially my therapist allowing the silence. My course mate, as the therapist, created a space for me that was warm, congruent, empathetic, and non-judgmental, putting me at ease and giving me exactly what I needed in the session. Learning more about these core conditions in the lecture on humanistic therapy and Carl Rogers in term 1 helped me appreciate the role of my course mate as the therapist, as they showed these conditions in practice. This also indicated the connection that I've built with my course mate and with many on the group. I found that I didn't feel the weight of my bereavement as much in the weeks following the skills practice in which I cried. This illustrates that I was able to process my emotions and that crying was a sign of feeling my feelings. I feel like my anxiety is getting better and I can cope better with any triggers. I wrote this in term 2. During the course, as someone who struggles a lot with anxiety, I have found course days to be challenging as unresolved and sometimes repressed past or present issues are often triggered in the lecture, skills practice, or personal professional development, PPD. The course has taught me about what it might mean to be a therapist. For example, someone who is congruent, empathetic, non-judgmental, and with unconditional positive regard for the client. I understand this and can see myself developing these skills in skills practice and my interpersonal relationships. However, I often struggle to treat myself with the kindness that I would show others, something that exacerbates my anxiety as I can catastrophize over triggers and struggle to be present. I wrote, I want to carry on getting better, sitting with things and self-regulating in term 3. I have found throughout the course that I am better at processing things and sitting with the difficult emotions that arise during the course day, accepting that I'm feeling this way without spiraling as much and rehashing the past. I've also increased my self-awareness, recognizing those triggers as things that either need to be addressed or let go of. Moreover, I have learned during the course to create boundaries and maintain confidentiality. Learning to process what has been discussed in PPD by myself, a challenge for me, as I previously would vent to my partner about things that I found challenging, such as work. I've made a conscious effort to limit my discussions with my partner to broader themes and topics on the course day and how I relate to them. Self-acceptance. Self-acceptance has been nurtured through skills practice, as I have felt progressively safer sharing my thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I have also felt accepted by my PPD group, as I check in with the group and talk openly. In term 3, I felt comfortable speaking about how I struggle with listening to music that has been associated with difficult times, such as when I was bullied at school and would listen to music on the bus journeys as it elicits negative emotions. My group shared how music has had a positive impact on their mental health and helped them process emotions, which encouraged me to listen to more music. I found this to help me process the bereavement I experienced in term 3, as I confronted the negative emotions such as sadness, and I understood that it was necessary to feel these in their entirety. My PPD group has opened up a space where I can feel vulnerable and be authentic. I recognise my contribution as a group member and my positive impact on others. For example, when I shared in term 3 about the difficulties in the school system, which I see firsthand in my job, this opened up a fruitful conversation around how each individual's needs and development look different and require an adaptive approach. My course mates and I empathised with each other, having had my course mate and I empathised with each other, having had similar experiences working in schools, which built a deeper interpersonal connection. Healing. I can recognise my continued development, such as being able to talk comfortably enough about my disordered eating. I wrote in term 3. I have come a long way since the start of term 1, when I wrote about how I fear that I'm speaking too much, provoking unknown reactions and resentment in others. I struggle a lot with feelings of guilt and shame, but the openness and warmth of my course mates have invited me to embrace all aspects of myself, even the parts which I don't share as readily. Listening to some of my course mates share their own experiences with disordered eating made me feel a lot of empathy for them. Likewise, I could feel this being reciprocated. These experiences have made me feel less isolated, and I'm proud of how far I've come. However, I've also struggled with feelings of guilt, as if my problems aren't severe enough to be shared with the group. This was an ongoing theme in my teenage years, feeling guilty about sharing my struggles with my family. I recognise how this invalidation of my pain and suffering manifested itself in these years and led to an inability to communicate problems effectively in my interpersonal relationships. I also felt guilty initially when talking about my disordered eating, as I have never been diagnosed, so it didn't feel like I should speak about it. During the course, I've developed a stronger sense of self, where I feel as if my story is worth sharing, rather than trying to compare it with others and potentially invalidating my own experience. It made me think about the privileges I have as a straight white guy, but also validating how, due to my class, which I'm also privileged for, I'd feel ashamed or embarrassed. I wrote in term 3. The course has encouraged me to explore differences, recognising the great diversity among the group. I used to feel conflicted about my identity. On the one hand, I'd feel upset and hurt when people used to mock me for being privileged, and I felt a sense of defensiveness. On the other hand, I would feel the need to overcompensate and repent for the privileges that I experienced as a straight white middle-class English man by being vocal about my disapproval of the unfair advantages I and many others have. The course has taught me a lot about being kinder to myself, and I feel accepted for who I am by my course mates. I've learned a lot about how I experience the world compared to my course mates, who are from different demographics than me. For example, we have different sexualities, races, genders, ages, backgrounds, and careers. I've learned to recognise my privileges, whilst also not being ashamed of who I am. Still with me? Excuse my voice. Nearly done. Finding purpose. It all just felt right. I wrote on the first course day. I have maintained an unwavering sense of purpose throughout the course. I feel incredibly passionate about becoming a therapist. However, I felt a sense of imposter syndrome. I also wrote on the first day. I have found it difficult dealing with this. Surrounded by successful course mates with more life experience than I have, I'd overcompensate to establish myself in the group by contributing a lot. However, I think this also because I wanted to engage and I'm very interested in the content and experience. I have had to remind myself that I am worthy of being on the course, despite my age and less work and life experience. I think that if I were to become a therapist at a young age, this would be a particular advantage if working with younger clients who are around my age. I would be able to understand some of the difficulties faced in the modern world, including living in a world with social media. In term 3, when asked in PPD how I found the dynamic as the therapist with a course mate as the client who is an established professional, I could say with confidence that I felt comfortable and not intimidated in this therapeutic dynamic, and I felt respect for my client. Over the weeks, I need less external validation, as I can recognise more easily whether I've done a good job in skills practice. Feedback from the client and course leader in skills practice is encouraging, as I can understand my impact on the client as the therapist in skills practice, and learn how to improve my techniques and skills. I wrote in term 2, I noticed that I felt confident before feedback, although seeing how I could have improved that I'd done a good job. Although seeing how I could have improved that I'd done a good job. I can see massive personal growth here. I often seek validation from others, both within and outside of the course. So to have more self-assurance and confidence is very encouraging. In addition, I wrote at the start of term 3. I was critical of myself as I knew I could do better, but it had excuse me, got a bad cold. But it tells me how passionate I am about becoming a therapist because I really, really want to get better. This is perhaps the most important reflection. Living with anxiety means I easily overthink and doubt myself. But for me to be confident in what I'm doing as a therapist in skills practice makes me realise this is the career for me. I not only enjoy being the therapist, but also the rich discussions I have with my PPD group after skills practice, where I often feel my most vulnerable. Being around people when I'm struggling to bracket my thoughts, feelings and emotions that build up throughout the day has encouraged me to not struggle in silence and share things with the group more often if I'm unable to process them myself. Excuse me. Oh dear. Don't know why I'm speaking so much when my voice hurts. In PPD, we spoke about what freedom means to each of us. I found this beneficial to reflect on. Some things I shared were the freedom to be independent and freedom from anxiety, brackets, inner peace. I now realise that I don't need to seek freedom from my anxiety. I can live with my anxiety and have learned coping strategies such as meditation and learning to sit with things and integrating all parts of myself. PPD has often been very productive and engaging. At the end of term 2, we discussed the idea of the two wolves and, and having control over which one you feed, good or evil. I don't think I should go to work today. I will, but I'm not feeling good. I resonated a lot with the idea of feeding the evil too often, such as feelings of guilt, for example. For example, I get scared about upsetting people and then misinterpreting what I say. Thus, I can be placid and don't share my opinion as readily, even if I have ideas. I have improved my confidence and self-assurance on the course, though I'd like to continue this development on the Masters. Okay, there's not too much more. A crucial part of the course was in term 2, when I was fascinated by Alfred Adler's work. Sorry. And I ended up writing my academic essay on one of his concepts. The lecture and my research on community feeling and social interest have positively impacted my views on interpersonal relationships and solidified my desire to become a therapist. I feel a great sense of belonging when I am with my course mates, surrounded by like-minded people who share an empathetic bond and the goal to help others. The idea that we are intrinsically motivated to cooperate with others and contribute to our environment resonates with me. The week on Adler reinforced the idea that a sense of community can significantly improve our mental health. I feel like this with my course group. I've read this from my self-reflection essay, by the way. I've cut out various bits which were either too personal or I just wasn't comfortable sharing, so it's going to be fragments. I didn't include the intro or conclusion. I just wanted to share that with you because that was it was a very honest depiction of my experience. I've got my journal there. It was taken from my journal, which I do each week when it was I wrote in term 1, I wrote in term 2, whatever. That's because I've been doing a journal each week to kind of document how I felt during the course, what came up for me in terms of what triggered me, just how I experienced the course. If you're still here and didn't know, skills practice is where you practice being the client, the therapist, and then everyone else observes. PPD, personal professional development, is you're split into a group and of like with your course mates, and then there's the facilitator, which is like the lecturer or like course leader or whoever, and they just facilitate, and you have a conversation about like sort of reflection about how you experienced the course today, and then explore different topics, and it's very like open, but it's getting you to reflect and think about your development and how you like position yourself in a group like this, like with your course mates, these kind of things, how you experience your course mates, how you think they experience you, just like a very open discussion. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry about my voice, and I'm sorry if it sounded too robotic, but excuse me. If anyone did get past that initial 15 seconds, because I don't know whether like it would have been sort of, what's the word? I don't know whether people would have enjoyed it enough in that initial bit without knowing context of like the fact that it's me reading my essay. It might have felt quite robotic, but we'll see. Don't need to like self-reflect here, but maybe that's the point, is this whole thing is about self-reflection. But I hope you did enjoy it. And yeah, just giving you an insight into how I experienced this foundation year in psychotherapy and counselling. And if I pass the essay, which I've read bits of here, which I'll find out soon, then I'll progress on to the master's, which is also in psychotherapy and counselling, which would start in September, and is another 4 years of study. And then once I've done that, I can qualify as a psychotherapist and counsellor. Probably use psychotherapist as my title if I make it there, which hopefully I will. If you have any questions about my training, please don't hesitate to ask. And yeah, I've really enjoyed sharing this with you, because I kind of thought about it before. I only completed this essay a couple of weeks ago. I thought about sharing it before, but it felt like very personal to me, but I'm actually really glad that I've done it. So if you're still here, thank you. And be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and take care. Have a lovely day, everyone. Thank you for your time and for being here. Bye. And if you want to talk more, as I've kind of said, like about therapy training, if you're interested in getting into it, then I'd love to have those conversations too.